from Los Angeles, this is the Echelon Radio Network.
So this is Jerry Hemsworth with the Echelon Radio broadcast, and I'm sitting here today with Kim Millman. She is an estate and, well, let me back it up. You're a trust and estate planning attorney. Mm-hmm. Does it always go trust and estate planning attorney?
Actually, I generally describe it as estate planning and trust administration.
Oh, there it is. Okay. And what's the difference between trust administration?
So estate planning is what happens before someone dies, mm-hmm. and trust administration is what happens after someone dies.
Which I would imagine is a much longer process.
Yes. Yeah, the trust, and it's actually much longer, more complicated, and generally more expensive.
Oh, gosh.
So, and there's a very big misconception about that because people are sort of conditioned to believe that if you do an estate plan that's a trust-based plan, mm-hmm. you don't have to go to probate, and when someone mm-hmm. dies, you are done. You don't do anything.
Right.
And that's not true. There is as much work, if not more, after someone passes away. A trust doesn't actually do anything. It's not magic. It's mm-hmm. instructions. It tells people what to do.
Okay.
It doesn't move assets around. It doesn't tell beneficiaries anything. Somebody has to read it, follow the laws of the state, the mm-hmm. federal government, and the trust document itself. Okay. So that's what trust administration is. It's following the probate code and doing mm-hmm. all the required notifications and filing all the tax returns, mm-hmm. finding the assets, valuing the assets, figuring out what the trust instructs the trustee to do, right. and then doing that. That process, in general, takes between 9 and 18 months.
Okay, 9 to 18 months.
Yeah, it depends on how complicated the assets are, how messy the decedent was, and whether or not things are nice and organized. Whether
and
or
debts
not, well, there's debts. I'll give you a classic example.
Yeah.
I had a client who I had known this family for many years, but I was friends with one of the sons in the family. Mm-hmm. I didn't really know his father. His father was by profession, he was in the he invested in second trust deeds for the most part. So most of them were hard money loans.
Whoa.
He had lots of deals, lots of things where he was the creditor.
Okay.
But we had minimal to no records.
Oh,
he also had a tendency to invest in very risky deals with minimal to no paperwork. So when he passed away, we had 3 checks. Each check was $500,000, and it said in the bottom, investment.
Oh, dear.
So
oh, dear.
Yes, you can imagine. So the 2 sons were like, well, how do we get our money back? I go, well, how do we find our money? How do we deal with this? So that was an example of the most confusing. But then there are people, I have one going right now, where the client was a business owner. Mm-hmm. As far as his family knew, quite a successful business owner. Mm-hmm. He died of COVID. He caught it, and he died a week later, totally suddenly.
Right.
No understanding of expectation that he was in poor health. Mm-hmm. And we're still looking for his situation. It's been going on for months. We found, I think we're, at last count, we had 35 bank accounts. We had...
You've got to be kidding me.
We had, I think, about 30 credit cards. We have 4 or 5 pieces of real property, all of which have loans on it. Because he was a business owner, he had taken out a PPP loan and an SBA loan within a month of his death. It's a puzzle.
And do you like those kind of cases?
I love those kind of cases.
Yeah, the big juicy ones.
I love the puzzle.
Okay.
What I don't do is litigation. So if anybody's fighting, I don't like the fights, and I don't take on those cases.
Well, perhaps your law is your second career.
Yes.
Because in junior high and high school, you worked after school. Where did you work?
So my parents started a business in the fashion business when I was 10. Actually, they started it when I was 9. When I was 10, my mother announced that I needed to get a job since I had now attained double-digit age status.
Oh dear!
So my
mom.
So my parents were childhood sweethearts. My father grew up in the Catskill Mountains. They both grew up in the Catskill Mountains. Oh. But my father his family owned a hotel that was very similar to Dirty Dancing. Exactly like Dirty Dancing in the Catskills. And the reason my parents met is because my mother was a dancer at the hotel when they were teenagers.
Yeah.
So my father had this understanding that you basically give birth to your employees.
Oh,
gosh.
That's
what his family was. Every member of his family, the hotel was started by his grandfather. There was his grandfather. He had 5 children. Their 5 children. Their 5 husbands. Those 5 couples had 10 grandchildren. They all lived together on the hotel property, and they all worked in the hotel. Every one of them.
Truly a family
business. So my father, that's how he thought family businesses worked. Mm-hmm. So I have one sister. Mm-hmm. The family business was, my mother was the marketing side we were in, like I said, the apparel industry, and I was groomed to be my father's.
His sidekick.
Kind of his sidekick, mostly his escape plan. That's how they were going to retire. They were going to give everything to me and my sister, and
whether you liked it or not.
Whether we liked it or not, exactly. So when I was 10 and my mother made me this proposition, I said, well, I'm 10 years old, who's going to hire me? And of course she said, I will. So every day after school, I literally worked 40 hours a week from the time I was 10. I worked all the way through high school, or all the way to junior high, through high school. I went to CSUN because it was close by.
Sure.
I worked 40 plus hours a week in college. Did you ever question, or was it that this was normal for you and you don't question? So it's kind of both. When I was 10, my 4th grade class went on a field trip to a courthouse, and I said, this is what I want to do. Oh. And then the family business took over, and that goal was sort of put aside. And as I said, I was my father's succession plan, and very abruptly and tragically, my father passed away very young.
Oh, boy. How old was he?
He was 45.
Oh, no.
He was diagnosed with a brain tumor on Friday, and he died on Sunday.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
So it was a very unbelievable circumstance. And so my mother was a mess. And my sister and I were trying to keep my mother together and try to keep the business going. And I was 23, and I was the CFO because that was my position.
And did you know what you were doing?
I did.
At that point?
I mean, to a certain extent. I mean, my father was an engineer by training.
Okay.
But my father was running the business, and he had taught me from the time I was probably 12 or 13. I was running the books, and I was doing.
He was a great teacher.
He was a great teacher,
nice.
And I had sort of a natural affinity to contracts and negotiations and stuff like that. Yeah. So I sort of stepped into that role, and I just did it.
Yeah.
I mean, you do what you got to
do. You do. You don't question. You just do it.
Right. So over the years, the family, the business was always in apparel, specifically accessories, and we always sold to the junior market. So
direct mail catalog?
No.
Not at that time.
Okay. No, it's the beginning stages. We were what was called a jobber.
Okay.
And jobbers don't exist anymore. But what jobbers did is they were a middleman between large manufacturers and individual mom and pop dress shops.
Gotcha.
And we had thousands of dress shops around the country. We had sales reps around the country, and we were the middleman.
Yes.
And over time, the economy changed. Mom and pop dress shops went out of business, and the rise of the malls happened, and every store was in every mall. So then you had, rather than have little stores all over the place, you had one store that was in 200 places or 500 places. And these are names that you grew up with.
Sure.
This was Judy's, Contempo Casuals,
579.
Wet Seal, 579,
Yes.
Petrie's,
Yes.
Ganto's.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
And we also sold to all the department stores, so Nordstrom's and Macy's and Sears, and I mean, everybody.
Wow.
And so but those type of people, they don't need a middleman. You are now, you go direct. So then we became domestic manufacturers. So we designed the product and we made it. So then we went from having sources out all over the place that we were buying from to turning into a factory. Wow. One of our competitors went out of business. I negotiated. I bought their whole factory. I bought all of their equipment. I bought all of their employees.
Gosh.
I moved them into our building, and we were domestic manufacturers.
Unbelievable.
And then the economy got even worse, and domestic manufacturing became impossible. Partially because labor laws and labor costs were too high, but more importantly, we sold product that was not particularly liked by Cal OSHA. You can't do metal work. You can't do leather dyeing. And we sold primarily belts and hats and small leather goods.
That's accessories.
That's accessories, and you can't and earrings and even things that weren't particularly metal had metal parts, like a belt buckle.
Gotcha.
So all of a sudden, you couldn't make anything locally either. So, but we had our clients, and my family's motto was hard workers, fast learners.
Okay.
So what's to do? We went to China. So we designed the product here, had them manufactured in China. We did that for several years, had everything brought in that way. And then by this time, it was 1996, and in 1996, in the first 6 months, 6 of our major customers declared bankruptcy all at the same time. And each one of those bankruptcies was between 200 and 400 stores, 200 and 4,000 stores. So those bankruptcies were enough to wipe us off the planet really for forever. So, but we had one customer who was doing gangbuster business.
Okay.
They would do a test order of 300 pieces, and 2 days later they'd buy 3,000, and 2 days after that buy another 3,000.
Okay.
And they were doing business because they had developed a business model that had never been done before, which was direct marketing to teen girls. They were named, the company was called Delia's, and they literally created they unleashed a whole new concept. And we looked at them and we said, we don't. One of the reasons we never went retail before is because brick and mortar is really hard to do.
Right.
You have to have all the places and all the leases. You can't do that.
Sure.
So, but we're sitting in our building and we could put out a catalog.
Yeah.
So, at that point, my mother retired, and what I missed in the story is over those years, my sister had gotten married and her husband came into the business, and I had gotten married and my husband came into the business.
Oh, I didn't realize your husband came in.
So it was all 4 of us were running it.
What about your children?
When we started Girlfriends, my oldest son was in junior high or middle school, and my little ones we sold it and they were second grade. They must have been in preschool.
Okay.
No, actually, then I got my timing off. My older one would have been in grade school,
Gotcha.
and my little ones would have been in preschool.
Okay. So they were...
Because they're 5 years apart.
Little.
They were
you had
little.
little kids.
Yeah, they were little.
Gotcha.
So we decided to start the catalog. That was we were going to sort of emulate the way the Delia's had done it.
Right.
So, but we were, at our core, we were manufacturers. And when we sold everything that we had made before, it was all private label. So if you went into Contempo, it said Contempo.
Right.
And if you went into Judy's, it said Judy's. But
Sure.
it was all us.
Sure.
So we knew how to make things, but we didn't have a brand.
Right.
So we hired a graphic artist. She designed the brand for us. I actually came up with the name Girlfriends.
Nice.
But Girlfriends was taken, so then we came at Girlfriends LA,
Okay.
which we kind of marketed as a California look. And we took the product that we had made for other people, we put the Girlfriends brand on it, and we ran a full-page ad in 17 magazine.
Whoa,
And the
was
ad
expensive.
That was. If I want to say, it was probably $35,000.
Wow. But great circulation.
Well, yes. I don't know what it is now. I'm sure it's still probably the number one teen
yeah.
magazine at the time.
Yeah.
And probably still is.
course.
And 17's from like the 40s.
Yes.
So the ad said you could buy product directly off the ad,
Yes.
or you could call for catalog. So I don't remember what the sales off the ad were, but the day the ad hit, which was in October of 96, we got 6,000 phone calls the first day.
Oh dear. So suddenly you had
We were severely
phone
understaffed.
center?
We did not have anything ready for that. We had 7 employees and 4 phone lines. And yeah, totally blown out of the water.
Yeah.
And we actually got our first.
I think we're onto something here.
Yes,
sis.
we actually got our first catalog out that for Christmas of that season. Although our delivery was terrible, we were totally understocked and understaffed. But there's a couple funny stories about that. So one of the things, this is before the internet.
Yes.
So mail order was really mail order. They sent you an envelope with a check in it.
Yes.
So we had gotten a PO box to take the mail in. So then the PO box was on the way between our houses and the factory. Yeah. So my sister and I drive to work, and we said, let's go to the post office and see what's there. So we open the post office box. There's like 4 envelopes. Yeah. Oh, how exciting! So we got ordered. So we do this every day, and there's like 4 envelopes, and there's like 7 envelopes, and there's like 20 envelopes, and then we open the thing, and there's a key, and I go, oh, a key? What does a key mean?
It's going to a bigger store.
So actually, it wasn't a key. It was a piece of paper.
Yes.
So I go to the front desk. I go, this was in my PO box. What does this mean? And the guy walks out. He goes, your girlfriend's. Comes back, brings me a sorting tray.
Yes.
Full. And it got to the point where there was like 20, 30 sorting trays. It was insane. It was crazy.
Oh, Kim, you and your sister must have gone, crap.
Yeah. Well, and the funniest thing is that when the mail was little, I said, we need to have a letter opener in the car so we can open it and read the letters on the way into work. And then all of a sudden we've got these trays. Very naive. So we, again, like I said, the family model is hard workers, fast learners. We instantly rearranged ourselves. We by nature were hands-on. So we built a call center. We staffed it. We built it. It had 16 stations.
Everything in-house.
Everything in-house. We did. We converted it had been an empty room at the warehouse. We built a call center there. We staffed it 24/7, but we also had an overflow call center in another place. We hired. We brought in warehouse staff for packing and picking, or picking and packing and shipping. And we stayed in that building. That building was about 13,000 square feet.
Whoa,
and
that's big.
And that that was where we were when we had the factory.
Okay.
So that did not work for girlfriends. It was way too small. So we ended up buying another building about 40,000 square feet. And by sheer luck, it was right next to a postal distribution center.
Perfect.
So it was in Valencia. There's a major BMC on Franklin Parkway.
Of course.
We were on Franklin Parkway 2 doors down.
Gotcha.
So, which was great because we could have the latest pickups, and it was awesome.
Sure.
We ended up running Girlfriends for about 6 years.
6 years.
6 years. We sold it in March of 2002 to a competitor.
Okay.
And at the time we sold it, we had a little over 200 employees. We had a database of about 8.5 million teenage girls, and we were producing 30 million catalogs a year.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So
and then you went.
Well, then I went. I was like hitting a brick wall. It's like you can't. I was working 24/7, and I still had kids, and they weren't. They sometimes saw me.
3 boys.
3 boys.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when we sold. Well, I have an older one and I have twins.
Yes.
And when we sold Girlfriends, the twins were in 2nd grade.
Okay.
And I all of a sudden realized, I can do whatever I want to do. I can go to law school. I can be a lawyer here because it's been put on hold for 20-something years, but now I had time.
Now's the time.
So I made that decision on January 31st, and I remember it was January 31st of because we sold it in March of 2002, but I had cleanup work at the end, and we owned real estate. I had to sell off the real estate, and I had to do the true up on the sale, and I had all the taxes and everything. So I finished everything in mid-January, and on January 31st, I said, I'm going to go to law school. So I go and look up all the...
And your husband said...
no, my husband said fine.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, my husband was totally fine with that. So... And I had no idea what law school was going to be. I mean, it's a law school. How hard could it be, right?
But you got into Pepperdine Law.
Well, what happened is I went online to there's 5 local law schools that are ABA law schools. And so I went on all of their websites, and their applications for all of them was due the same day, February 1st.
Oh, God.
So I said, well, this is not going to work. So I decided, and I had to take the LSAT, and I had to.
There's things you got to do
first.
first.
Do stuff. So I decided to apply the next year. I spent that 1 year. I practiced for the LSAT, and I self-studied, and I tried to be a PTA mom, and I helped in my kids' classrooms, and I did all the stuff that people who have time to do things in their children's lives, which I had ignored for most of their lives.
Right.
So I did that, and well, actually, I take that back. Right after the sale closed, I slept for a week.
I bet.
Because that was an unbelievable experience. So then when I did decide to go to law school, I did go to Pepperdine. I loved Pepperdine. I loved law school. I thought this was awesome. It was stimulating.
And did you remember being 10 years old and going into that courthouse and going, wow?
Well,
okay.
The funniest thing is, what happened is, as a result of having the company, we had been involved in lots of litigation, various types of litigation. So my quest for being in a courtroom went away.
Like, I'm
done. I'm done.
Enough.
I had no interest in having anything to do with litigation. But my quest for law and negotiations and working with people and tax planning, all that, that became very important to me.
Okay.
So when I was in law school, I discovered that estate planning was a perfect complement for what I had done.
And you had experienced the loss of your father.
Yes, right. And my father, partially because he had died so young, was thoroughly, there was nothing. There was no estate plan of any kind.
Oh, boy.
But in fact, on my father's desk was a little, this is before Post-it notes, but there was a little tape to his lamp, do will.
Oh.
So, my first experience with anything to do with an estate plan of any kind was what happens when you don't have one. And it was a mess. I mean, it was a mess for a whole bunch of reasons.
Sure.
And again, dealing with my mother, who was, they had been dating since my mother was 10 and my father was 11.
Sure.
Yeah, devastated.
Of course.
So, and the circumstances of his death was just so horrible.
Yes.
So, I decided in law school that this was my calling. This was a perfect fit for me. I could work with business owners. I could work with families. I could do tax planning. I could do projections. I could do succession planning. I've always been extremely philanthropic, so I could do charitable planning. It was a perfect fit. So, and on a somewhat selfish side thing too, estate planning doesn't have the kind of oversight from the court, and it doesn't have the timelines and the deadlines. So I didn't want to do that either. I'd lived that life. I really didn't. I wanted to be able to pick the clients and pick the situations and do what I was best at.
What a great advantage that you had then, because that you had your first career and experienced all that, so that when you did go to law school, you were that much wiser and you knew what you didn't want.
So that's a great point for being a lawyer. It doesn't work so well for being a law student. Because when you're a student, law school really wants an untouched brain.
Okay.
They don't, I had a very hard start to my law school career because I hadn't been a student for 20 years, more than 25 years. So I'm walking in like I'm in the 1985. So I walk in with my spiral notebooks. And I'm sitting there waiting to take notes, and everybody around me's got their laptops. And I'm going, how do you listen and type at the same time? I did my first, and I did everything by the book because that's how I was taught.
Sure.
So the professor said, read 27 cases and brief them, which is like, so I'm like typing 10-page briefs, and I'm sitting in class every day, and I'm writing notes, and then I go home and I'm transcribing my notes because how else am I going to get them into my computer?
Right.
And law school was the first year you can't control your schedule. They do it for you. So Pepperdine's plan was you have 6 classes, and you're in a section of 80 people that all have the same 6 classes, and you have no control over when they are or what they're doing. So I'm literally working in insane amounts. An insane amount of hours just to stay on top of things.
Did you ever see your babies, your kids?
It's really funny. To this day, we'll be sitting around having a family dinner or something or other, and somebody say, do you remember when we did this? And they'll all start talking about it, and I'll have this dead expression. And they'll look at each other and go, law school years. So yes, I did have. You
lost some.
I lost some serious family time. And I decided that I couldn't continue like that. That was just, I was going to have a heart attack. So I decided to go to summer school the summer between my first year and my second year. And while I was in summer school, I discovered that there were two things you could do. A, if I went to summer school, both summers between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, that's basically a lot of classes out of the way, or a lot of units out of the way. And Pepperdine, I don't know if other schools do this, but Pepperdine offered classes in either 3-unit versions or 4-unit versions. So if you take all the 4-unit versions, you end up lopping off 1 or 2 classes. So by sheer luck for me, all the classes that I was good in were 4-unit classes. So people don't like those 4 units because if you do poorly in them, it trashes your GPA.
Yeah, I bet.
But for me, Wills and Trust was a 4-unit class. Income tax was a 4-unit class.
There was somebody saying this is the way you need to
go,
but
Kim. Conversely, evidence was a 4-unit class, and I wasn't touching that one.
Run away.
But what happened is, I did the 4-unit classes, and I took the summer school, both summers, and I ended up graduating a semester early.
Nice.
So I literally slowed myself down to the point of speeding myself up.
Yes.
And then I realized, okay, I know how to run a business, and I've been to law school, but I have no idea how to be a lawyer. Because law school teaches you how to be a law student. It doesn't teach you how to actually practice law.
But you had run a business before.
I had.
So you knew about insurance. You knew about accounting and books. And
Right. And I was a CFO, so I knew all the back end.
Right.
So I went and I went to go look for a job, and I ended up working for an attorney who is a small sole practitioner, specialized in high net worth planning, brilliant attorney, really nice guy, taught me everything of how to be a lawyer. And some attorneys,
he became a bit of a mentor.
He was a mentor, and a lot of sole practitioners don't do that because they're afraid the underling is going to steal their business.
Yes.
But no, he didn't. He had me sit in on client meetings. He had me go to presentations. He was awesome, and I would have stayed with him because it was a great deal, but. The economy turned again. I graduated law school in 2000. I'm technically the class of 2007, but I graduated in 2006 because of that semester thing. So I started working for him in 2007, and then the economy went to 2008. And then in 2010, that was the year where there was no estate tax. So between the economy being terrible and the laws being totally uncertain, there was nothing to do.
That was about the time that I met you.
Yes.
And we were networking together.
Right, which was also his suggestion.
And you went out on your own. And so I want to fast forward to today. If a client was to say the best thing you do for them is?
So that's hard. I think if you were to actually interview my clients, the answer that they would probably give you is, I understand them.
Yes.
I listen to them. I understand them. I correct them from making mistakes. I put together teams for their benefit. And that goes back to the more so on the trust administration side.
Yes.
Because when someone passes away, especially if they die either suddenly or, like I said before, in a disorganized manner, you need a team.
Yeah.
You need to find a CPA. You need to find a financial planner. You need to find an appraiser. You need to find a realtor.
Real estate. Yes.
So the ability to network and find all those people has been amazing. Amazing.
And I bet because of everything you've been through in your life, business owner, mom, law school, and the loss of your father, I have to believe you bring a soft gentleness to your clients because you understand them and you understand the grief and some of the things they're going through.
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
I think that's why I said if you ask them, I think that's what they would most likely think. Because I picked the profession avoiding the confrontation and the aggression. I mean, there are many, many really talented probate litigators out there.
Yes.
And when I have a client, like go back to the one with the 3 checks.
Yes.
I brought in a litigator because we had to do something on that. It wasn't going to be me.
Right.
So I team up with people. Bring in the team. And I have this great ability to do that from all of the people I've met over the years since I've been on my own. And it's
very
been
unique.
really, really helpful.
You are really one of the more unique attorneys I've ever met. I think I feel really confident in your ability because of your history and what you've done in your life.
Well, thank you.
And I just think that's it. I like-minded people, and I think you're one of those.
Well, I think it's also something I'm very detail-oriented, and I get into the weeds, and that's important when you're trying to find things.
Right. But you're not afraid to get into the weeds either.
No, as long as there's no fighting.
Yes. Yeah, keep the fighting.
Yeah.
No boxing gloves.
Right, because that's a whole nother personality type.
Yeah.
And
That's not
I
you.
didn't want to do that.
You've got too big of a heart. Kim, thank you for being with me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you were here.
This is great.
Thanks.
Presented by Echelon Business Development. More than just networking. Way more.